Nick, Brake, and I are in Los Angeles for the national championship game. So fired up. I mean, extremely fired up for what's about to go down on Monday. The entire weekend has been a movie. But you will notice there is one team that is not here. Well, there's a lot of teams not here. There's one team specifically that a lot of us, myself included, had pegged to be in the national title game at the beginning of the year that's not here. And I'm not here to rehash the whole season, but there's been a lot of talking going on about the Alabama Crimson Tide. And some of it's warranted, some of it's garbage. Let's take an honest look at what's going on right now in Tuscaloosa. Because the reality is, the narrative is that Alabama's taken a step back. You know how I feel about that. Let's revisit it one more time. Alabama's taken a step back. Saban's lost a step. The team's not as good as it used to be. Other teams are catching up with them. Okay, I hear you. What really happened? Lost 2 games on the road by a combined total of 4 points. Like, are we really saying the team's taking a step back after that kind of showing in 2022? Now, there's no question. I don't want to excuse this. There has been an underachievement this year. Everybody expected them to run the table, be undefeated, and be in this game. That's why we're having this conversation right now. But to say that Alabama's taken a step back feels very, very short-sighted to me, because we've seen Alabama lose multiple games before. Typically, the data would tell us that after a down year is like 2 losses for Bama, they respawn in an enormous way and typically end up playing for a national title. So here's my question to you. Do you trust the data? Do you trust the numbers? Or do you just trust your gut in saying that Saban's taken a step back? If you trust your gut, that's fine. I think the gut is supposed to be trusted on many occasions, but this, for my money, is not one of them. Because the personnel's not taking a step back. At the time of us recording this, Alabama's got the #1 ranked class in the On3 consensus team recruiting rankings. Translation, they're going to have really good personnel. They're going to have top 5% personnel in the entire country. So Alabama, you think they're taking a step back? That's fine, but I just think you're going to end up with some egg on your face in the long run. It's just how I feel. If you have not yet subscribed, we got you, man. We're in LA for the national title game. It's all because of y'all allowing us to get here. But the clock is going to hit 000. The game is going to finish up, and there's going to be a period of time where there is no games being played. So there's a lot of other outlets that will not be producing content, or will not be producing content that's college football centric. That's not us. 12 months out of the year, we got you covered right here on the Hard Count, on the On3 YouTube channel. Make sure you are subscribed. Also, follow me on the social channels at JD Piquel on Twitter and on Instagram. So you look at the year, you say, what went wrong for Alabama? Because clearly you're not playing for the ultimate goal. Had a phenomenal Year 6 bowl win. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But what went wrong? I think there's 2 things that you look at. The first of which being, I think the secondary never fully caught their stride. And that's new for us as viewers of Alabama football. Nick Saban prides himself on elite secondary play. He coaches that position group very, very closely. But it wasn't nearly to the standard that we've come to expect from Alabama. And it may not show up from a statistical standpoint. I think it's a little bit more situational. I think you have to actually turn on the tape and watch it. Because there's good players, but situationally, the ball would be in the air, and time again, there'd be situations where when that ball was, it was essentially a layup it was a layup for a pass interference, is what I'm trying to tell you. They didn't play the ball well in the air consistently throughout the year. I'm not saying every single game was bad. I'm not saying they have bad players. That's not what I'm saying. In fact, quite the opposite. But I'm saying from an execution standpoint, they did not play the ball well in the air. And I mean, it's tough to win that way. It's tough to not play big body receivers well. We saw them hurt against Texas. We saw them hurt against Tennessee. Heck, we saw them not play very well against Texas A&M. And so that was the continued thorn in the side. And Will Anderson is a freak show, phenomenal talent. Bryce Young, phenomenal talent. 2 of the best players we've ever seen come through that program. But football is a team game. Football, you need every single part of your operation executing at the top level. And so to have that be the Achilles heel routinely is why we saw them play the way they did, why we saw them lose the games that they did. And I'm not going to be so simple as to say that was the only issue, because I think there's other things within the program that we could talk about for a much longer period of time. But for me, the secondary not playing at the expectation level for us is why they had the year that they had. On top of that, wasn't the disciplined team we're used to seeing from Nick Saban. I mean, one of the most penalized teams in the country, folks. At one point in time, they were in the triple digits in terms of penalty yards per game. It's not good. Okay, that's not good. I say triple digits in terms of ranking, not yardage, but ranking. They were one of the most penalized teams in the entire country. And what do we know about Nick Saban? Discipline, process, way of doing things. This kind of team, what we saw on the field from them, that wasn't the typical Nick Saban model. It wasn't kind of the Nick Saban output we're used to seeing. So the lesson in that then is, do you trust this 1 year as being the backsliding point, or do you trust, again, Nick Saban, his process, and the much larger data set that says, no, they usually do have great DBs. They usually do play the ball really well in the air. They usually are pretty well disciplined when it comes to the controllables on the penalty side of things. It's your call. It's not mine, but I'm just presenting you the facts here, and I'm telling you, I side very much so with the larger data set than just 1 year of mediocrity as it's relative to Bama. Not the entire country, as it's relative to Bama. All right? So going forward, here's the deal. The drill in Tuscaloosa doesn't change. The standard doesn't change. It's still, we want to win a national title. We want to win the SEC. We want to go undefeated. Anything less than that for Alabama is a down year. I mean, look at it. They handled a Power 5 conference champion in Kansas State, a good team in Kansas State. You pretty much could have had a running clock by the fourth quarter. It's not to knock Kansas State. It's just to say Alabama has some muscle, and when they choose to flex it, and when they're able to flex it consistently, they're a top 4, top 3% program, okay? So next year, it will be the same expectations. They don't care that Bryce Young left. They don't care that Will Anderson left. It is, no, we are Alabama. We got the greatest coach of all time. We expect to play for a national title. So I think two things you can expect. One, coaching changes. I'm not going to be super specific with that. I just think there will be changes on the staff. Keep an eye on that. The second is the transfer portal second wave, I think, could be very defining for Alabama. And I think it's going to be post-spring because you're going to figure out what you have at the quarterback position and say, okay, can we win a national title with either Jalen Milroe or Ty Simpson? I don't know if there's enough data on either of those guys to make a super informed call, but I'll just say this: Jalen Milroe was getting some wide receiver reps at bowl practice. That's a fact. I'm not going to read too much into that, but take that information as you want. Ty Simpson hasn't started a collegiate game yet. Hey, far be it from me to question either of those guys. I'm just saying post-spring practice, you'll get a good gauge on, okay, are those the answer for us? Do we need to go in the portal and get a quarterback? Do we need to get them more help around them? Do we need to get some game-breaking receivers on the edge? Another thing that we could talk about with Alabama and why they weren't as elite as we were used to them being. So, at the end of the day, Alabama, for my money, is very much still Alabama. I trust the larger data set with Nick Saban than I do this 1 year of a less glamorous production. But the same remains the same. Nick Saban is the greatest of all time, and I firmly believe he will have his team ready to play when toe meets leather for the 2023 season. But regardless, you know we're going to have you locked in on the On3 YouTube channel, on the Hard Count. We appreciate you tuning in. Nick, break lifting heavy. We're on the road. It's because of y'all. Okay, so thank you very much for that. We're going to keep the party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of the Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.